Good afternoon. Welcome to the Village Council's meeting of February 10, 2026. As we now call this meeting to order, as we usually do, we'll begin with an invocation, this time led by a member of the village staff, Jason Whitaker. Jason, please.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, we pray for your divine direction and wisdom as you lead our discussions and decisions. We pray that our hearts and minds be aligned as we seek solutions that will best serve the needs of the village and our community, Lord. And we pray that you'll guide council and staff as they work together for the betterment of Pinehurst, Lord. We thank you for such a wonderful place to live and to work. And we say this in your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have some presentations we're going to go right to. Doug, do you want to address this item 3A and then item 4A?
Sure. So I would like to invite Lieutenant Bill Jackson and Lieutenant Eric Nell to come up to the front here with, I guess we'll invite Chief as well. I believe it was November 10th. Eric and Bill were traveling in Carthage when they came upon an accident. At that time, they quickly stopped what they were doing, so they were not on duty. They were not working for the Village of Pinehurst at the time. They stopped to help the vehicle. There's someone trapped inside the vehicle, and they were able to help get them out of the vehicle faster than, if they weren't there at the time. So we were really grateful for their service. So when we talk about public services is what we really mean, that these guys who stop what they're doing, put their lives, somewhat at risk and help other people when they are really in need. So grateful for the effort, for what you do for the village. And this isn't like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. These guys do their best to put their lives on the line every day for us, and we really appreciate what they do. Appreciate you for standing for what the core values of the village. So thank you.
Just want to say thank you to Bill and Eric for what they've done and the fact that they stopped and the investment that we make each and every day and the fact that they train the way they train and they do what they do. Just thank you so much. We're very proud of you. And like we said before, this is a lifestyle. It's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And y'all stepping up made the difference, and thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
So I was going to say this, but then I thought better, but now I'm going to say it anyway, that Eric probably deserves two because he has to deal with Bill. So
Now we'd like to do a little recognition of the winter storm response, the very successful winter storm response that took place here in the village, buildings and grounds, the fire and police departments, and public services. There's a lot of people to thank and to recognize. Doug, I know you have a few things you'd like to say.
I mean, this was a great team effort over 2 different weekends, so no one actually got to enjoy weekends in January. So both the police and fire departments, but in particular buildings and grounds and the public service departments really went above and beyond. So, they gave up their weekend. They actually slept over, had to sleep on cots. I heard it was quite a fun slumber party. We were not invited, however, but we really appreciate the time and effort you guys went to. It made our community safe, helped us out, and I think everyone in the community really recognized the effort that you went into. We look on Facebook or comments online, and it was very clear that they appreciated what you did and appreciate all that you do every day for the village. So thanks very much.
Thanks. Can I ask all the folks here who, with the public services, buildings and grounds, fire and police departments, to please stand up so we can recognize you and say thanks. Thank you. Okay. All right, we'll move to item 5 on the agenda, which are reports. Doug, I think you have a few items, and others will follow with that.
Yeah, a couple of items. First, the St. Patrick's Day is coming up quickly. It will be March 14th at 10 a.m. Applications are now open if you want to participate and have a float or any submittal. The deadline for those is February 20th, and you can submit that on vopnc.org/events. And so our staff is busy coordinating logistics and making sure that that event can be pulled off safely. Also, we have our America 250 Stars and Stripes Shared Traditions Recipe Book. So we're going to extend the submission deadline to the end of February to get a few more. We've had a pretty good response. We have quite a few submissions, but we're looking for a few more. And the idea is, share some of your favorite recipes from family members long past, and kind of share the story about it. So it's a living history book that is also very delicious. So we hope that everyone can share those recipes, and you can do that by submitting them online on our website.
You want to talk about the recognition for James Walker Tufts right now?
I can do that as well. So it is, forgot about this, thank you. So February 11th, tomorrow, is the 191st birthday of James Walker Tufts. We want to recognize him and what he did for our community, and recognize that we are still trying to live up to the ideals that were set forward back then, and creating a wonderful community that's a great place to live and work and to recreate as well. So thanks.
Great. Okay, I have a few items to mention. One, last week, I was joined by, I think all the council members, just about, it seemed like, and we planted a Liberty tree in George Marshall Park, right there across from the entrance to the Pinehurst Resort. This is part of our America 250 effort, and it was fitting that it would be in the George Marshall Park, who was probably the 20th century's most distinguished public servant. He was Secretary of War, then he became my Secretary of Defense, then Secretary of State, and was considered quite an individual who ended up retiring here in Pinehurst, where he supposedly drafted up the Marshall Plan, which I think we all learned about in grade school. And so it was a good recognition. Thank everybody for joining me, and we'll continue to do events along those lines during this year. Also was able to attend the Moore County Economic Development Partnership this morning, where they went over a bunch of topics related to potential development in the county. It was one of the more larger turnouts for the Moore County Economic Development Partnership. And the news is good. There are people and companies that are interested in coming to Moore County, but we're in competition with a lot of other people, so we have to be vigilant. Also, I know I saw some of my colleagues, I guess it was yesterday, the Sand Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization workshop, which was held right in here. And residents came and went and gave their opinions and thoughts on some of the upcoming projects and themes and ideas that the SMPO is going to be considering. This was part of their public input process. And so as the new chairman of the SMPO, I was glad to see it went well. And I'm sure I may hear from some of my colleagues here. And lastly, I got to attend a very nice celebration of life for Marty McKenzie, our distinguished resident of Pinehurst for many years. Mr. Pinehurst, as I like to refer to him as. And it was a good turnout of a lot of people in the village of Pinehurst and beyond. So he really made an impression here in this community. And now I'll turn to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Pat. I attended the SMPO Technical Coordinating Committee meeting, which was last Wednesday. Interesting discussion as they continue to work toward the creation of something called the Metro Transportation Plan, or MTP, and this public meeting that Pat spoke of that was in this room on Monday is a requirement as they formulate that. We'll have more to say about it in the work session when we talk a little bit about the traffic circle, and because a lot of what goes into formulating these plans has to do with population. And as I say, I'll have more to say about that. I would say with regard to the meeting yesterday afternoon, it was put on by the consultants to the SMPO, Kimley Horn, and I was impressed with, although I thought the format where they were trying to collect information was maybe not optimal from my standpoint. The questions that they asked I thought were actually pretty penetrating. And I hope that, I mean, I was here almost the whole time, the 2 hours, and to be honest, there were not that many people who attended, but they were looking for how people feel about transportation generally, not specific to any particular road or what have you. And the sorts of things that the SMPO, as it looks out over a 20 or 25-year time horizon, is going to need to be thinking about. Some of those things will intersect with what we do here as a council, but others will be more for the region of the SMPO. I think that's it.
Okay. Jeremy.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'll add on to John because a lot of my focus as well has gone to the circle, and a lot of that, we're going to discuss a lot of that later. But John Taylor and I also met with Wangu Lee last week as well, and got a great education on the traffic demand modeling that the state uses to make a lot of the decisions about the roadways and the changes that they plan to make. And also, if you have not noticed while driving around, we are in the middle of election season, so I'll remind everybody that early voting begins this Thursday, the 12th, and runs through the 28th of February. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Saturdays as well. There are 2 Saturdays that there is going to be open for early voting, and that's the 21st and 28th, with the times of those Saturdays being 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Early voting for this primary election is in 2 different locations. It's going to be in the Moore County Ag Center at 707 Pinehurst Avenue, as well as the Aberdeen Recreation Station at 301 Park Crossing in Aberdeen. And then just really my final report, really for myself more than anybody else, it's Valentine's Day this Saturday, so I will need a little help reminding, but also I hope all of you find your special loved one a little something as well. So thank you.
Oh, boy, you have outdone us all now. Thank you, Jeremy, for those words. Barb.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 things from the Beautification Committee meeting, which was yesterday, their first meeting of the year. Number 1, the installation of our pine cone logo on the railroad trestle is now complete. We now have 6-foot black aluminum pine cones, one on the Pinehurst side and the other on the Aberdeen side of the trestle. Secondly, this is exciting and new. The village has partnered with NC State Cooperative Education, the Moore County Cooperative Education, North Carolina State Master Gardener Volunteers, and the Village Heritage Foundation to create a demonstration rain garden at the Village Arboretum. This is the first demonstration rain garden in Moore County. A rain garden is a shallow area designed to collect and filter stormwater. The design, plants, mulch, and soil work together to break down pollutants from runoff. The rain garden will be located in the Village Arboretum near the native pollinator garden just off the brick walkway from the Timmel Pavilion. A workshop will be offered on Friday, April 10th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Pinehurst Village Hall and the Village Arboretum. The event is open to the public, but there will only be 50 participants. The cost is $30 with registration through North Carolina State University. So watch in the pilot for more details about this in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Councilman Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Mayor, I had the opportunity last week to attend the Senior Advisory Committee for the City of Cary. And it was an excellent opportunity to see a collaborative body, an advisory body in action. Interesting to note that Cary has had a Senior Advisory Council for over a decade now. And it was great to see that the methods and infrastructure they've put into place that have made their work so successful has closely mirrors the planning that we put into ours.
All righty.
Pat, if I, just one
Go
thing
ahead.
for Bar, at the meeting yesterday, a gentleman approached me who was on the Bicycle Advisory Committee in Southern Pines. And he would be interested in a discussion or maybe even a joint meeting between the two, because sometimes our pathways align with one another and so forth. That was an interesting opportunity. Nothing has to be done formally, but I just passed that along. I'd forgotten about that.
All righty. That concludes the reports from the council and the village manager. And so now we'll move to item C, and that is the FY26 biannual police report. So I think there's a chief here. There he is. Come on forward, chief. And that'll be followed by our fire chief.
Now that I've learned to operate the mic, move on. So this will be our calendar year 2025 crime stats presentation. So just some highlights. These are mid-year plus. So last year we only recorded 2 violent crimes. One was an arson and one was a robbery. The robbery was kind of under suspicious
Chief,
circumstances.
just so we're all clear, this is as of December 31st?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so it's the first 6 months of the...
No, this is the whole year. That should be the full year, but
Calendar year 25.
yes, that does cover the calendar year.
Okay, all right, we said fiscal.
So the 2 violent crimes, one arson and one was a robbery, but the robbery was kind of suspicious circumstances, and the reporting person quit cooperating with us after we started asking questions. So we have some theories, but anyway, it still went down. Our fraud reports overall, at the midpoint, were only up 2%, but they really gained traction through the rest of the year, and we're up 23% overall. Some other highlights: theft from motor vehicles was down 65%, breaking and enterings was down 60% from the average. We answered over 26,000, almost 27,000 calls. 61% of those were officer initiated, so think traffic stops, field interviews, neighborhood patrols, things like that. 39% were citizen initiated, and then the statistics kind of flipped with the time they spent on the calls. 73% of the hours spent on calls were spent on citizen initiated calls, which shows that the officers are spending their time with our citizens and victims and really working on those investigations and building bonds with our community. Last year, over 2,500 citations were issued, 191 arrests were made, and there were 331 charges connected to those arrests. Those are both misdemeanor and felony arrest. In our community satisfaction survey that we do, again, that's a text message for new council that goes out when you have an interaction with one of our officers or telecommunicators. We've got about a 50% response rate for 2025 and a 96% positivity rate. And again, we go through the negatives to see and the neutrals, and almost all of those were us not just being able to do what the person wanted us to do, so they didn't have the positive experience. A lot of training and self-improvement. We focus on continuous improvement at the police department. And just to go through the list, officers completed all of their 14 mandatory annual classes. Detectives Ferrante and York completed instructor school. Sergeant Lopez completed the law enforcement executive program and the administrative officers management program at NC State. Detective York completed 2 bachelor's degrees, one in criminal justice and another in sociology. Deputy Chief Hall and Officer Johnson completed bachelor's degrees, and several other employees are currently seeking advanced degrees. MPO Smith earned his intermediate certificate. SPO Judge earned his intermediate certificate. Officer Gibson earned both his intermediate and advanced. Officers received advanced training at the North Carolina Police Executives Conference. That was everything from juvenile law to fraud investigations and so on. And Detective York was also appointed to the FBI as a task force officer, so she now works in a part-time capacity with FBI to do federal cases and cases that we have locally that we can take federal. It's really given us a lot of extra resources for investigations. It hasn't taken away from her primary work here, but she does do a little bit about once a week over with the RA in Fayetteville. We were named the 4th safest city, and some of that's lagging information, so all of that would come from 2023 finalized crime stats. So we slipped a little bit, but the distance between 4th and 1st is not very much. And when you start looking at the percentages and the stats.
I have a little bit of a bet for the next year with the mayor of Whispering Pines, so
All right,
I don't want to
do our
put pressure
best,
on
yeah.
you, Chief, but they're third.
Go ahead and wager the house on it.
Yeah.
Could arrange to put a thumb on the scale there.
Yeah.
We, our detectives, in response to the increase in fraud, and those of you who have been there for a while, you've seen it just exponentially grow since 2020, that we did a fraud town hall to help educate our citizens in how to deal with online fraud. But a lot of it is people clicking on things or getting scammed in different ways. But some of it's data breaches, and you can't really prevent that. And if you look at our stats, we're doing really good at preventing the things that we can physically prevent, but it's really tough to prevent things like online scams. So that's why we're engaging in these educational things like this fraud town hall. I know next week we'll be at CCNC to do it, and then Councilman Fitzpatrick reached out about doing a cyber crimes talk at the number 6 HOA meeting. So that is available for any HOA or community group that wants to get together. We will probably host at least one annually anyway for the whole village, but we want to make sure we're putting as much education in people's hands as possible.
Chief, when is the meeting at CCNC? Did you say it was next week?
Yes. I think it's the 19th, but I can email you, or the 18th. I'll email you and let you know for sure. It's on my calendar, and I conveniently left my cell phone at the very back of the room, so I don't have access to that. In 2025, we had over $4 million in losses for victims of fraud in the village. And just to give you an idea of how fast that picked up, we were around $1 million at the midpoint. And so it really grew exponentially through the end of the year and then into the holidays. Now, to put it in perspective, though, one case is right around $2 million. So half of it is one case, but still $2 million spread out over 18,000 people is a lot of fraud and identity theft, things that are going on, and a lot of exploitation of elders. So that's another reason we're trying to do these outreaches so that we can get people comfortable with calling us for advice. I know it's tough for people to not think they can handle things, but I call our detectives for advice when I get emails sometimes, because some of this stuff is very sophisticated, and as AI continues to grow, voice mimicking, visual aid mimicking. If prime example, the case with Savannah Guthrie's mom, they were talking about early on AI images and being concerned about that. So it's a concern nationwide, and certainly a concern here as well. So just to talk about a few things going forward, and what I've got here is something called performance on demand. So one great benefit of Village of Pinehurst is our citizens are very good to us. Council, management, staff are very good to us, and we see the rosy part of what we do. The officers are enforcing the law, they're taking good reports, they're closing cases at a high rate. I think our case closure rate's around 88 to 90% right now. But there's another side to that, and that is what is expected of the officers to keep that up, and that is performance on demand. So officers are expected every day, all day, to have peak performance. That's anything from taking a report to deadly force. And when you look at it in comparison to how professional athletes train, they have performance on demand about 10% of the time. And when you look at all the training that we do, and we go well above the state mandated training, we're only getting about 4% training at a time. So this is a future thing, not a this budget year thing, but we're talking about going from good to great to elite as a police department to increase effectiveness through staffing so that we can do training on duty, because we can mandate more training and try to close this gap. But the problem on the other side is that we steal days off. So currently right now, this month, we have at least 2 days that officers will be given up to come in for CPR training and for firearms classroom training, and that doesn't count the day on the range that they'll have, which is about a 12 to 14-hour day most of the time, depending on how much extra training we're doing. So we could work those things in throughout the day. Again, we're not gonna break the bank this year. We understand that money is a finite resource. I'm very clear with Doug. I do understand there's a limit.
I got a training question.
Yes.
What is the FBI LEEDA Trilogy Award?
Oh yeah, Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. So that is there's a lot of FBI. The FBI National Academy, and then you have FBI LEEDA. So that's 3 classes: Supervisor Leadership Institute, Command Leadership Institute, and Executive Leadership Institute. And so there's really good instructors from all over the country that participate in these. Are week-long classes, and they're well regarded throughout our industry and throughout the nation. And they really set the officers up to prepare to become leaders. So it's not quite going to AOMP or LEAP or the National Academy, but it does start to prepare our officers to think about being supervisors and to start thinking about leadership versus just in a way that's not just commanding people, but also inspiring and growing other leaders.
Does any of your staff go to Glencoe? Did I pronounce it right, in Georgia? Where the federal agents go to? Glencoe training? Does it ring a bell?
FLETC?
You may have changed the name since I remember it. No, not Quantico. GLYNCO. Doesn't ring a bell. Okay. No big question.
No, we have so many resources here. We haven't, other than going to Quantico for the National Academy, we don't send anyone out of state for it. The leader classes are offered throughout the year all over, and then we Samarkand, that brings in a lot of good instructors as well.
Thank you.
To piggyback on this, we are focusing on officer wellness a lot, because again, on that side of the coin where we're looking at training, we're also looking at ways to keep the officers whole, because even though we're a very safe community, they still deal with a lot of trauma. And I mean, just to give you an idea, like officer life expectancy is about 10 to 15 years shorter than the general public. Officers tend to have their first heart attack around 46, where the general public is more in the 60s, and the PTSD rate for police officers is twice what the general public's is. And that's the Buffalo study and PERF study and some IACP studies in there. One thing that we're doing to try to kind of help this is we've recently purchased the Sharp Performance app. This provides professional coaching for our officers, so it's not just therapy, although everyone you talk to does have a master's degree in counseling. If an officer's in therapy, they encourage them to stay in therapy, but they also do professional coaching, preparing them for promotion processes, leadership goals, nutrition, physical fitness, trying to take care of the endocrine issues that affect police officers. About 71% of police officers have sleep problems. And so they have strategies for that. It's all done on Google Meet. The best thing about this group is they all have what they call a cultural competency. Everyone who's a counselor with them has had to have a job where their life has been in danger. So there's SEAL team members, Green Berets, the police officers, firefighters, EMTs, other special operators. The coach I'm working with now on some goals was in SEAL, Tier 1 SEAL team. And so it's nice to have those people that have to understand our humor when we say things, and as well as the things that we go through. And one thing they said, to put it in perspective, one of the guys he was a MARSOC Marine, and that's a big part of this company, was that what we forget is if we have a bad day on the battlefield, they rotate home in a month. A police officer can be at the worst thing in their life, and in an hour they're at dinner with their kids. So there's no downtime between them. And so this is a great resource. We're getting pretty high utilization out of it so far, and we've gotten pretty good reviews from the officers for it. So those are things that we're doing too to be proactive in making sure we're taking care of our police officers. And there's just some more stats. Average person, 3 to 5 very traumatic events in the 80-year lifespan. Average police officer, 3 per year, equals about 180 to 200 over a 30-year career. A lot of that's absorbed in their first year, because you're going from, especially like me, for example, I was 21 when I became a police officer. So I went from a fairly normal, regular life to into law enforcement, and usually in the first year it's closer to 7, and then you have 29 years after that. And again, as mentioned in there, you go from a critical incident to family dinner within hours, or be at your T-ball game for your kid, and then again expected to perform flawlessly, whether that's use of deadly force or just knowing the law in a moment's notice. It goes back to the performance on demand that I was talking about earlier. And one day I will get all this down to one page like Derek does, I promise, but it's not this time. Maybe next year's mid-year or this year's mid-year. But any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thank you, one, for both your service and your report. And I do have a handful of little questions and comments. A number I saw that jumped right out at me is that we did not have a single motor vehicle theft recorded in the last year. That's an incredible number, 0 for motor vehicle thefts. So congratulations. I mean, no reason to leave your car with the keys in them in the driveway, but well done. I had a few other things these are newspaper clippings. I guess I have to give this the pilot credit for prompting these questions. What is traffic data software, and do police use it, and do we use it, and what do you know about it?
There's a lot of different types. I just talked to Urban SDK today. I think Southern Pines is using them now. They use cell phone data to calculate speeds of vehicles, because the information going from your phone to the tower knows how fast you're going away or to the tower. And so they use that also for location services. The same way your GPS works. So when you're coming up on something, you see the red line on your GPS. It's the same thing that they use, and the way that they package the data so it helps you decide on targeted enforcement. So, for example, stone out a random road, because I know this would never happen on Midland. Let's say there's a lot of speeding on Midland Road, and then we know we can do targeted enforcement there. Or if there's a lot of congestion on Morganton Road, it might be an issue where we need to do more enforcement there, or maybe that's information for planning for road expansion.
It's really about speeding, more or less. It's not something else that's done with it other than the road and traffic.
Correct. It helps us know what congestion issues we have, coupled with if there are average speeds that are above the norm.
Okay. Another one from the pilot. The Southern Pines Police Department is looking for a civilian crash investigator to work in the department. do we have a civilian crash investigator ourselves, or we borrow theirs, or how does this work?
So we don't, and, we've talked about it, and, so last year Doug and I were talking about this in the vein of the parking enforcement officer, that we see that as a possible outgrowth of that position at some point. So the civilian traffic crash investigator is exactly what it says. It is not a sworn law enforcement officer, and there's a state law that mandates different things. For example, we would have to buy them a different car because their car cannot look anything like our car, law enforcement car. Their uniform can't look anything like the law enforcement uniform. That's for their safety, to prevent that, and they're dispatched to calls that wouldn't normally require a citation, so fender benders, parking lot crashes, things like that. They would probably respond and help with traffic, but they wouldn't be the primary on, let's say, a fatality or serious crash or rollover or something like that. A lot of agencies, I think one of the first pilots was in Wilmington and Fayetteville, to kind of relieve some of the stress on the officer, and by stress I just mean staffing stress, of responding to small crashes to keep them available for
For the real
other
crashes,
calls and,
right.
and traffic enforcement.
I get it. And one last item, where was it here? I think you have told us about this in the past, and occasionally you get an inquiry about it. Golf carts and traffic and safety and all, what's your advice, take on it, and what do we have to do or don't do? Or
I think we're doing the things we're supposed to do. We register the golf carts. They're mandated to have the proper lighting and seat belts on them if they're going to be on any roads that are a speed limit of 35. You can't be on a road that was a speed limit higher than 35. So that covers most all of our roads.
is there a requirement for a driver's license for an operator
Yes.
on their roads?
Yeah, because they're counted as low-speed vehicles by the law.
That concludes all my cats and dogs. Thanks very much. Council members, other questions to stump the chief?
I also saw the article in the paper on the civilian crash investigators, and it struck me, leaving budgetary considerations aside, that for, as you say, the routine fender bender, that maybe is a relatively poor use of an officer's time, other things they could be doing, as opposed to taking the nuts and bolts and everyone saying, well, we exchanged insurance papers. Would you want to see us add one, or would you want us to see it go down the path of having a civilian crash investigator?
It's worth looking at. It would, again, free up time, because the vast majority of our crashes are low and slow speed crashes that a civilian traffic investigator could handle.
Glenn will always answer that question with a yes.
Yes. I'll take 3, but I mean, but I think mostly in a part-time. So the best practices that I've seen in talking to other chiefs and the bigger areas that have had them, that's been more of a part-time thing, where they hire maybe someone that's retired military or law enforcement to do it, similar to what we did with parking, because initially they tried to use them as feeders into their BLET programs for new officers, and it worked so well that they were always hiring a civilian traffic crash investigator, because there's also a certain amount of training time. Once they're hired, I believe it's 60 hours they have to ride with a certified traffic officer, which there's no definition for that in statute. So, every officer is a certified traffic officer. So they still have to do an additional 60 hours of training and responding to wrecks and getting up to speed on how to fill out the DMV 349 and all the ins and outs of the traffic investigation, taking measurements and whatnot. So it's not as simple as just hiring them and putting them out there. They still have a significant amount of other stuff they have to do with the police department.
But again, thinking about the available amount of time of uniformed officers on their regular shifts, that's the scarce resource. And if we can free them up to be doing whatever else it is we think needs to be done, whether it's better speeding enforcement or whatever, in lieu of, it's almost the same thing as when we talked about commitments at the hospital, and voluntary commitments at the hospital, how time-consuming that can be. So you're saying you would look favorably if we were to work that into the budget discussion that's kicking off?
As Doug said, I always look favorably on adding staff, but But I would encourage it to be looked at in a part-time capacity. So it might be where, you know, if you're looking one, maybe think two part-timers, because it tends to be something people want to do in retirement versus they work it full-time and then they get certified and they run off to another agency if you don't have a spot. And it's something that can be done very effectively in that way. I think Larry's a great testament to this, of how well he's done in that position since he's joined the police department.
And the other thing, I know we discussed some of the counseling and being proactive with that, not waiting until there's a traumatic event or what have you. So it's great to hear the strides that we've been making in there, and that it's being favorably received by the force. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Jeremy?
No comments. I think we're actually going to meet on Thursday as well, so thanks for having us over.
Barb? There you go. Get on the record.
I would like to say thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Chief Webb, great report, thank you, and thank you again, as Barb says, to your department. I'm struck by the online fraud, and the numbers are startling, I think. If we know about $4 million in losses, how much do we not know about that's gone unreported? I think the risk of crime, again, thanks in large part to the work of your department, is not to a person, but to their purse in Pinehurst. And I think we can't do enough in terms of education and risk reduction when it comes to online activities. Do you have enough resource in your department to be able to be out ahead of this?
I don't know that any department can be out ahead of it, but and I've already started talking to Doug about adding some detective staff to help deal with it. And just to give you an idea, because of how complex the cases are, because it's not as simple as, you know, traditionally when I started, which sounds like a long time ago, but in 1999, most frauds were in-person frauds. So someone, a flim-flam would show up, promise to do work, or they'd get a check and copy the check and do some check fraud. Now it's so complicated in the electronic space. If you receive 2 fraud cases in one day that you can work, you can only work one of them. And so it puts you behind by weeks because of how much time it takes to get back. Just to give you an idea, once you get a fraud case in, you're instantly writing search warrants, which take a long time to write, and you're writing probably 2 to 4 per case, and that you have to then get signed by a judge, and depending on the type of search warrant, it may have to be signed by a Superior Court judge instead of a magistrate, because of for example, if you're doing phone records or something like that, it's got to be signed by a Superior Court judge. So then you got to track that down and make those appointments and make those things happen. Our judges here are great, and they'll meet you pretty much anywhere, but still they've got to be available. So to keep a lid on it and to successfully work the cases, that will be a valid discussion in moving forward.
Forward to it.
Glenn, real quick, as kind of a follow-up to that, Officer York is, as you mentioned earlier, working with the FBI. I'm assuming a lot of fraud is, you know, multi-jurisdictional and crossing state lines, I mean. Does the FBI, that relationship, help us with detecting fraud and working and solving it?
Yeah, on detecting, not as much. Usually detecting is just once it's reported, but getting a heads up on types and of fraud and things that are happening across the nation, it's going to have a little more pipeline of that, but it does give us more resources. And having someone attached to that task force, if we have something that qualifies, because they have a criteria, when it qualifies, it'll more easily be adopted by the federal government. And we had one a few years ago that got adopted, but it got adopted out of Georgia because that's where most of it was happening, so the whole case shipped down there.
All righty. Anything else? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service. All right. And now for our Fire Chief.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you again. So following the same format as we've done in the past, so I'll just start over here to the left quadrant, the left upper quadrant. So currently, this report is for July 1st through December 31st. And so calls for service, we're at 1,307 calls so far. Our overlapping calls is at 20.03%. So if you remember, overlapping calls is basically meaning that there's 2 calls going on at one time. Our busiest day of the week is Wednesday, with our busiest time being 1 p.m. And then the times that we've been recalled is 12 times. So basically, just a brief reminder on what the recall is if we have a fire or we have an incident that has the units tied up, multiple units tied up at one time, we have to bring off-duty staff in to make sure we get another truck in service. That way, if we have subsequent calls or overlapping calls, we can run those calls as well. So of the 1,307 calls, the middle of the top row is the percentage of those calls for service by type. So fire is 3% of those calls. Rescue and EMS is 37% of those calls. Overpressure, ruptures, explosions, hazardous materials, things of that nature are 0%. We haven't had any of those. And then hazardous conditions, no fire. Those are, I got to put my glasses on. I was trying not to do it. 4%. And then service calls is 15%. And good intent calls is 19%. And then alarm calls and false calls are 18%. Severe weather and natural disasters is 2%. And then special incident types is 0. One thing I want to bring your attention to on this column, December 31st saw the sunset of the National Fire Incident Reporting System. That system has been in place since the early 90s, and it was housed within the U.S. Fire Administration. The U.S. Fire Administration has evolved that into a system called NERIS, which went live statewide starting January 1st. So the federal government and the state as well went to NERIS. So that reporting standard started January the 1st. So the biggest difference that we've seen so far, it's a lot of the same information, but there's much more granularity to the call types.
Chief, is that, I had a question, I guess you probably have answered it, but I follow your reports.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed, I guess maybe in the last weekly, that there's 21 incident types now listed on your reports.
Yes.
In the past, there were just 5.
Yes.
So, and you explained a little bit that I guess this new system requires more granularity.
Right.
So you're breaking these things out.
Yes, sir.
There's a whole bunch of these medical illnesses, from chest pain to sick case to unconscious victim to unknown problem. So that's what's happened. The
Yes,
reporting system
that is the
now
difference.
standardized. Okay.
Yes, sir, Mike. Yeah, and so the good part about that is in the old infra system, an EMS call was just listed as an EMS call. If we wanted to know what actually was the outcome of that call based off of a provider assessment, either through the paramedic or the hospital, now we're able to put that into the system, and it captures that data much more accurately for us. So that's going to be something that is going to provide some very real benefits to us as we move forward in the future. Calls for service by hour of day. So like I said, the busiest hour of the day is 1 p.m. I guess that's everybody trying to get back to work from lunch. And so, but if you look at it, our calls for service by time of day is pretty much it's the same, pretty much the same bell curve that we've seen over the years. When you look at our calls, I said it's 1,307 calls, but the interesting thing is we're plus 73 calls from this point where we were at last year. We're up 73 calls already just halfway through the year. So that is something, last year we pretty much we pretty much held the line last year, but this year we have been quite a bit busier so far to this point.
Yeah, along those lines, I did notice in this story that ran somewhere, I guess in the pilot, that Southern Pines, their year report was about 3,000 calls, which is, I'm being just simple and doubling our mid-year report and saying we're probably going to end up with 2,600.
That'd be a
or
fair
less.
assessment.
Right,
Right.
okay. Because I assume there's not a big difference between the first 6 months and the second 6 months of where there's a huge spike somewhere? Is there?
Well, so last year we were actually on track, and I thought last year that we were going to probably hit between 2,500 and 2,600 calls last year. But March and April, we absolutely it's exactly what you just said, where you would think we would continue to climb. We actually, we got into just a slow spot, which, I mean, yes, it's cheaper not to run them than it is to run them. So
Is the answer to about the differences between us just the nature of the communities and so forth?
it's everything. It's everything from population traffic to construction to age of buildings to there's just, every community has its own personality. It's no different than a person. Just like we have each individual unique personalities that we have, each community has that as well. Aberdeen is different in terms of the types of calls they run, the severity of the calls they run. The Southern Pines, that's just what you see anywhere in any communities. Even with the fact that a lot of times you can't tell when you leave Pinehurst and go into Southern Pines,
Right.
and vice versa. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So moving on, location of calls for service. So if you look, 73% of our calls occurred within the village. 12% occurred within our county district. And then if you look, assist others is about 15% of our calls. So remember, we have extensive automatic aid agreements with Moore County, Southern Pines, Aberdeen, where we assist them and they assist us. Moving on, state mandated inspections. So within that first half of the year, there was 84 state mandated inspections. Now the plan reviews, compliance, and consultations, there's 290 of those. So that's pretty much we're on schedule there. One interesting note, and Councilman Fitzpatrick and I had a conversation earlier this week, and one thing I also wanted to bring out is that of home fire inspection. So statutorily, we can't go into a private residence and inspect it, but a lot of times we're called to come in and do smoke alarm checks or carbon monoxide alarm checks. And so that often leads to a conversation about, hey, can you look through my house for me? Can you tell me, is there any hazards? And so we've done 225 of those, installed 52 alarms, and then 213 batteries. So, and I know, May, you've talked about that a lot over previous reports that we've done. That's a value add service that we do for the community, and I think we leave houses safer after we leave whenever we see those types of incidences. Days since our last lost time injury was 474 days. So get a report. We're actually over 500, well over 500 now. So because like I said, this was as of 12/31. Staff training hours were at 5,907 hours. And again, it's like we talked about earlier at the very beginning. That training that we do is absolutely paramount to them to be able to, for our members to be able to perform the way that they do. We've had several members go to the National Fire Academy, which is in Emmitsburg, Maryland, this year. And like I said, when you look at that, those are top shelf instructors from all over the nation, and we're there with peers from all over the nation. So we bring that knowledge back to the village, and really, it's really a bonus add for us. And so with that, just a couple other breakdowns. Like I said, we've had 1,307 total calls. If you look at that, 245 of that is automatic aid, 774 Pinehurst fire responses, and then 288 of those service calls. So that's the breakdown for those percentages, so you'll know what makes up that 1,307.
Chief, without going into all the breakdowns, would you suspect that Southern Pines would have roughly the same relationship for fire calls versus EMS calls? Maybe round numbers the same as we are?
I would have to look. I would say that we're probably pretty close. But once again, it's the differences in the community. So I'll give you an example. Just the fact of the age group within the community can change that. So without looking at their specific data, I mean, I could look at that. What I would say is we're all, when you look at that EMS side of the house, that's going to be a large portion of what we respond to. But the types of calls could be different just based off of the demographics of the area and the age, et cetera. Does that answer your question, sir?
I mean, I would think that the median age in Southern Pines, I would guess, is a little younger than Pinehurst.
Yeah.
And that might change the nature, certainly, of EMS calls, but.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
Chief, one question.
Yes, sir.
How far have you been called to go somewhere else outside our corporate limits? Have you been asked to help with a fire and respond to one in Robbins or Carthage, or is that
Yes, sir.
doesn't happen much? I'm curious because
So if you look, we actually can track that. So we have automatic aid. We have an automatic aid contract with Moore County, with every fire department in Moore County. So
Okay.
if we, if they were to call us, so what I would say probably in the first 6 months of the year, the furthest we've been is probably up around Seven Lakes.
Really?
So we've been out to Seven Lakes on some fires out that way. We have run calls up around Carthage, right there in the edge of Carthage. But a large majority of the calls that we run going out of the village is Aberdeen, Southern Pines, West End, and Eastwood. Yep. So that's kind of the hot spot of where we're at.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And so the second page, Glenn said he's going to get it to one page. Well, I got 3 pages, so he got me on that one. So, but what we wanted to provide you is we wanted to provide you just a glimpse. Okay, so this data that you have in front of you on the second page, this is a glimpse of what we're looking at from July 1st to 12/31 of this year. So that's the first 6 months. So to the questions that we've asked and from the birdie that we've been asked to study, this is the first 6 months of that 18 months. So this is without the new unit and the new firefighters, okay?
The 94-2, 9310, what do those numbers mean?
Okay, great question. Glad you asked it. Yep, so what we've done is we went in, so before we were set up on what we call fire demand zones, and that's just a way for us to track where calls are happening within a geographic area. One issue that we had in the birdie was trying with the 6 fire demand zones that has served us very well for many years. It was proven difficult for us that we realized that, hey, we had to get more granularity. So what we done is we went in and we took where we just had Station 91 and Station 92. We went ahead and added a 93 fire demand zone. That way, the area that we know Station 93 would cover first due, we can now project those calls and we can tell you, okay, if Station 93 was in service today, these are the calls it would be running. If Station 94 was in service today, this is the calls that would be running. So now we can say in real time, these are the areas that those stations would be covering. So when y'all go to look at the data, and you're trying to make those decisions, you can see exactly what types of calls, the times, the response times, what it's taken us to get into those areas, the types of calls, the dollar loss, all that. So when you look at those 93s, anytime you see a 93, that'd be a Station 93 call. If you see 91, it's a Station 91 call.
So these are, I'll call them map coordinates or areas,
Yes.
but the response times are based on responses from the 2 stations we actually have.
That's correct. That's correct.
Don't know necessarily which station responded to 93-3.
So-
We just know it took on average 8.5 minutes to get there,
Right.
something like that.
That's right. So, but if you wanted to know, okay, what was the unit, we can actually pull
Right.
and say, okay, yep, that was the station that goes. So we can tell you that. But what this is, what you're seeing in front of you in terms of these times, this is whatever that unit was that went, this is the first unit on the scene, and this is the time it took them to get on scene.
So a year from now, I guess, we'll
Yes,
want
sir.
to look and compare these things.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So really this is the baseline, right? So this is the baseline that we're saying, okay, this is without the truck, this is or with the new squad that we have in service. It went in service January the 12th. And so we're going to be able to start crunching that data and really start to get some very granular.
This that we're looking at now, part because we didn't have this, our rapid response or quick response unit,
That's correct.
you will be able to break down the quick response unit if they responded versus I'll call it the regular
Yes,
response
sir.
unit.
Yeah, so what we can actually do is we can say, okay, 918 is the truck that's going on those calls, right? So we're going to be able to say 918 went to these calls, and this is how long it took them to get there. And so it's running 100% of all the EMS calls. So that truck, and it's been in service. I'm proud to report that it's been in service 100% of the time since January the 12th. So when we see that, we're going to get a true feel for that type of truck staffed in that manner in which it's staffed, which was the reason why we decided to do the study, to add that is it going to save the time, and is it the right way to address the concerns that we've all had? So that's really when you look at what's going on. But what's really interesting is, and one thing that I would draw your attention to that's very interesting about this, is if you look on the second page in that bottom right hand where it says total number of emergency incidents within the response zones, something that really shocked us coming into December was, if you look at those numbers where it says 93 and then you compare them to 92 and 91, if Station 93 was in service today, it would be just as busy as Station 92. And that was something we knew that 92's calls were climbing, but being able to look at that and how it would look, that was something that was really surprising to see, that based off of that new map and the new zones, that it was showing the number of responses in that area. If that station
Will
was
you
there.
be able to break out the emergency incident by type like you do in your weekly reports?
Yes, sir.
now?
Yes, sir. We can, Mayor, we can go in there right now and we can say zones 93.1 to 93.10, just that, emergency calls only, and break it down by the incident type and give you the call performance overlaps. every bit of it.
That'd be helpful to know.
Yes, sir.
What we're sending.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Derek, quick question on that chart.
Yes, sir, Doug.
So 94 is the northern part of the village, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So most of those calls right now are probably being filled by 91, when 93 is probably more of a mix between 91 and 92.
That's correct.
Let me play devil's advocate just for a minute. If I look at the 92 and 93 calls here, it looks like you have one very active area in 92.
Yep.
And two very active areas in 93.
Right.
The other ones in 93 are actually very low incidents. Just out of curiosity, where are those? Where's 93-1 and 93-3?
Yeah, so if you look, and I'm going to ask Shannon, if you look on the back page, and so if you look, and it's going to be, and if you want me to send this to y'all in a PDF where you can look at it, like enlarge it. So if you look on it,
Please do.
So if you look up here, so basically, if you take Highway 5, okay, and if you're on Highway 5 heading south towards Aberdeen, okay, when we built these zones, we built them using GIS and response times and all that good stuff. Basically, everything on the right-hand side, if you're on 5 heading towards everything on the right-hand side will be that 93 First Due District. And you're probably saying, well, 91's closer. The problem that you have with 91 with getting to Highway 5 is the road network.
Right.
Whereas if you're at Station 93 where the land's at right now, if you turn left on the Linden Road, it's a straight shot. They don't fight the stop signs, the curves, the traffic. So,
Now, what about 92? Why wouldn't 92 respond to these things on the right-hand side?
well, so if you're coming out of 92, so it's just when you look, and you can't see the numbers inside the squares, but 92 does have area on that. Okay, so if you look at the way that the data is laid out and the zones are laid out, it is by GIS and response times. Those areas at 92 that we know can get to quicker, 92 is going into those areas. I was trying to use the road network that you see that you can kind of make out on this, but I'll get you the PDF so you can blow it up on your iPads or at home or whatever, and you can say. And then if you have any specific questions about a zone, we'll be glad to answer that.
Just out of curiosity, what is 91-1? That must be in the heart of town.
It is. So 91.1 is right. You're basically sitting in it right now. So the other thing we've done is we've also called out anytime you see 10. So anytime like see 91.10, 92.10, 93.10, those 94.10, that denotes county district. So if you say, well, how many times are we providing? We can tell you how many times that we're going into the county, how many times we're going into Taylortown. Taylortown now has its own fire demand zone. So we can track that with the granularity we can get into now. We can tell you a lot of these zones are driven off of neighborhoods. Pine Wild has its own zone. Clarendon Gardens has its own zone.
I don't know, just one zone?
It's one zone in that map. Yes, sir, that's correct. So that way, if you say, okay, how many times you're running into an area, we can tell you this is how many times we're running into those areas.
That'd be
Yeah.
good. That'd be helpful.
I mean, it's possible, like, it's great that they're set up like this. I mean, if we wanted to dice it any other way, our GIS guy can do it that way, but this is an easy way to track it and have it more readily available.
Very helpful now that I understand it. I know what I'm looking at. Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
Yeah, just two quick ones.
Yes, sir.
So Chief, what percentage of our calls are we asking for mutual assistance from another department in another municipality? Do you have that data or?
So, yeah, so if you look at, so when you look at the assist others, I can actually get you how many times we receive aid versus give aid. What I would tell you is we receive it more than we give it.
Okay.
And that's because when you look at our call volume compared with Aberdeen, Aberdeen comes into us a lot, but our call volume is slightly higher than theirs.
Yeah, that'd be
it's
useful
just,
to know
it's
that
just slightly. So,
information.
yeah, but I can tell you, I can get you how many times we receive versus give, and I can give you that. That's no
Just an
problem.
assumption, is it twice as much? Is
Oh,
it
no, it's
just-
it's much closer than that. Yeah, it's not that, it's not that far of a spread.
And I assume that you're in a lot of contact with, the chiefs and other departments and that type of thing. Are you measuring this data against other municipalities and other departments as well?
So what we can measure
Aaron?
is, and so we can measure like their call responses versus our call responses. If you want to look at, it depends on the data set that you want the comparison on. We can get you those comparisons. But the one comparison, for example, that we get asked about a lot is the 90th percentile versus the average. Okay, so some communities use average response times, but the national standard is the 90th percentile. And that's because what you're after on that is average is 50%, right? And so that's only what you're doing some of the time. 90th percentile is what you're doing a majority of the time. And that's why the national standard is that 90th percentile. So I would just say that when you're comparing data, we need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples on that type of data.
But can you put the second page up again that has that time breakdown? The 90th percentile, the 6 minute and 30 seconds is not a national standard. It's a standard that we have adopted, a benchmark that we are trying to hit.
Right. So if you actually look, we're actually higher than the national standard. The NFPA 1710 sets that at 583 seconds. And so if you look at that, at 6:30, we're actually above that standard.
So 583 is 9 minutes and 40 seconds, 43 seconds.
More than that. Well, you got the problem is that's total response. That's call process all the way through. In other words, so if you look at that NFPA standard, they're looking at it from the time that the call comes in. This is only looking at from the time we get the call, right? That's 6:30. That includes the time we get the call to the time we get there. So it does not include that call process because we don't dispatch our own calls. We're reliant. And Moore County does a very good job. I mean, they're meeting the national standard in terms of their call processing time. And if you want to see the national standard, I'll be glad to. I can get you that information on that national standard. I'll be glad to forward that to you.
But you're saying the 630 is more aggressive than?
No, we're actually above the national.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we're allowing ourselves more time than what NFPA is. NFPA is more stringent.
It's more stringent, but it's measuring something different than the 630 is measuring. Those are not comparable
Right, yeah.
time periods.
They break it down like we do. So they do call process, and then they do turnout, right? So turnout times from the time we get the call till the time we respond, okay? And then they do travel time. So travel time, we can't affect travel time, okay? Travel time is travel time. So really the only segment of time that we control is that turnout time. So that's how fast we get out of the door.
Right, and I know we've talked about in the past some of the difficulties with curvilinear streets and what have you. You can't drive 60 miles an hour through St. Andrews, even if you wanted to.
Right. And if you look at our average speed, and I can't remember, I think it was 22 or 23 miles an hour when we were doing.
Yeah, I don't recall, but that seems about right.
It was low. I mean, so it was, where in most communities, like, I'll give you an example, ISO, who grades fire departments, the insurance service offices, they base a lot of their stuff off of 35 miles an hour. And we just can't reach that 35 mile an hour that they're using a lot of their studies.
Few places you could, but a lot you just
That's right.
wouldn't be safe for you to
Right,
do
it's
it.
just road width, curvilinear streets, stop signs, traffic.
Kevin?
Chief, I want to thank you and the department for everything you do for us. I want to thank you especially for the home inspections. You know, the fall that was avoided, the incident that we avoided. I mean, those are really important services to the community, and I don't think it gets as much public attention and gratitude as it should. So thank you for that.
Thank you, appreciate your support.
Thank you. Chief, I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
Community Connect. I've heard you talk about it in the past. How many people do we have signed up for it now?
So I think last time we looked, it was like 275. I think is what it is. We kind of hit a wall with it. So we're looking at some things, maybe to try to kind of do like a recruitment into that. To kind of, I know we got the NAC coming up. I know Kristen had asked us to also do this presentation at the NAC.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to bring it back out, and we'll pass out the cards again
Yep.
and just bring that awareness back. But we're looking at some other things to try to engage the community on that, to try to get them. And I get it, I mean,
You
heard
leave
Chief.
a card behind when you're putting those batteries in? I mean,
Yeah.
they,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, it's a great tool, it's there, but, so many people, you heard Chief Webb talk about the fraud, and people are just so hesitant, and rightfully so, but it is a very secure system.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't, oh, Kristen's not here. But, in conjunction with raising awareness of the latest fraud scam that we've become aware of or something, whether there's something that the village can do from a communication standpoint, just to make people aware of the resources that are available.
Well, we've got the website and the newsletter, and we've got opportunities to just, Community Connect is sort of a little notice, but once someone signs up, they're on it, and they become a little bit of an ambassador for it.
But if we're reaching out to people anyway, include that as well, because could be very valuable service for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Community Connect has been on our social media website, et cetera, but we could,
Okay.
run that again occasionally.
Okay. Anything? I think we're wrapped up. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank y'all for all your support and all you do for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
We'll
sir.
look forward to, you're all hired up, aren't you? You got your whole crew's on board, and go for it. Okay. All right. We'll now go to item 6, which is the motion to approve the consent agenda. All the items listed on the agenda are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the village council. So we're going to be approving the village council meeting minutes for January 27th, the regular meeting, and January 27th, the work session. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve all items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion adopted. That ends the consent agenda. Now we move on to item 7, public comments. Okay. We have 2 individuals, and I'm certainly going to recognize this person first. Dr. Jeff Morgan, very familiar to those of us here. Please come forward and speak up.
Good evening. I would like the Village of Pinehurst, via the Pinehurst Council, to name the harness track the Marty McKenzie Harness Track. The reason for this, I'm going to give 5 different points on here. One is a lifetime of proximity and passion. Marty's connection to the track was literally foundational. He was born in '45 in a house located just steps from the 5/8 mile training track. His love for harness racing wasn't just a hobby. It was a lifelong passion sparked by childhood friendship and Hall of Fame trainers like the Camerons. Naming the track after him honors him as a native son of Pinehurst, which there's not many of those, and it's come full circle on the very grounds. The second thing on there is being a curator of the mile track. While much of the Pinehurst Training Center received historic protection in 1996, the mile track, the largest public green space left in Pinehurst, remained vulnerable. Marty recognized the missing piece and has worked tirelessly in his final years to secure National Historic Landmark status for it. This is still underway. Number 3, creation of the Pinehurst Racing Partners. Marty understood the survival of the harness track in Pinehurst required a new generation of supporters. He launched the Pinehurst Racing Partners, a fractional ownership syndicate that invited local residents, many of whom had never seen a horse race, to become owners. This initiative didn't just buy horses. It built a community of advocates to ensure the sport for decades. Number 4, defender of 3 main pillars. He famously stated that Pinehurst is defined by only 3 things: the Pinehurst number 2 golf course, the historic village itself, and the harness track. And he argued if you take these away, we're just rural North Carolina. It makes us special. Number 5, the economic and commercial vision. As the founder of the Olmsted Village Company and prolific developer, Marty had the business muscle to influence Pinehurst's growth. However, in that growth, he always preserved Pinehurst. He did not allow routine type of stuff to come in. Things that came in had to meet the Pinehurst standard. So dedicating the track to him acknowledges him as a leader who balanced the needs of a thriving 21st century economy with the preservation of a 1915 equestrian landmark. And for you, Mr. Mayor, the juice is worth the squeeze on this one. Thank you.
Great ending. Okay, thank you for your remarks, Dr. Morgan. Our next speaker, Keith Eldridge. Familiar name. Come forward, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Manager. For the record, my name is Keith Eldridge. I live at 4 Pinebrook Drive. My wife Jan and I have enjoyed living here in retirement the past 3.5 years after I completed a 50-year career as a television newscaster and last 40 years in Seattle. Go Seahawks. And one of my roles is as a communication committee member at the Pinehurst Country Club. I produce all the videos for them. Another role that I have is I'm the president of the Pinehurst Rotary Club. Councilmember Fitzpatrick is a member. The mayor is a Rotarian as well. But I come here tonight as the new president of the Pinehurst Number 6 Community Association. With Kevin ascending to the village council, it fell to me as the vice president. I am now the current president of the Pinehurst Number 6 Council. And in that role, I actually sit in that chair when we have our quarterly meetings, and we fill this house. And you know that very well because Mr. Mayor is a constant visitor with us. I come here tonight giving our full endorsement to Cole Excavating to be continue with their work on the sidewalk project that has come to the Pinehurst Number 6 community. It's one of your last items, but staff is recommending Cole Excavating. They did the first phase 1. I met with them along with Mike Apke early on in the process. They were transparent. They were responsive when they got on scene. Traffic issues were minimal. They responded to each of the residents who had any concerns. The project went off. It was completed. Any mitigating things were taken care of in a quick hurry, and people have now seen the results, and they are totally pleased with what has happened out at Number 6. So our recommendation is for you to continue with Cole Excavating to complete phase 2. The only question our residents have asked me about is, why wasn't this company given an automatic permission to go ahead with the bidding process? And I had to explain that part of the bidding process necessitates a new bid, but we hope that you will continue the choice of Cole Excavating as the completion for phase number 2. And I would stay around for the vote later tonight, but I'm going to follow Jeremy's advice, take my wife to a romantic comedy at the movie theater tonight and get ahead of the Valentine's Day effort. And so unless there are any further questions you have of me, that's my presentation.
Well, thank you for your comments, and get home quick.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we go on to resolutions. We have 2 we're dealing with. First one will deal with the appointment of Bill Colmer as chairman of the Board of Adjustment, and the second one deals with the 2027 fees and charges schedule. So, Doug, I think we probably should call Bill Colmer forward.
If you'd like to ask Bill some questions,
Yes.
I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those. We do have a vacancy at the BOA chair. Bill serves on the Planning and Zoning Board, which is also serves as BOA. So we recommend that Bill be in that position to serve as chair. He's got great leadership attributes, and he will make an excellent contribution in that role.
That's terrific. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself before we turn over the car keys to you for the Board of Adjustment.
Well, let's see. I think I've done this once before, but a little bit about my background is I spent just about 28 years on active duty with the United States Air Force, and I retired from the Air Force as a colonel. After that, I went to work for a group of hospitals just to change the pace, and it really was quite a change. Following that, I then went to work for a small startup company out of Maryland named Lockheed Martin. I don't know if you've heard of them. I spent a decade or so working with them. Then I started my own consulting company and ran a consulting company for about 7 or 8 years. We moved here to Pinehurst about 15 years ago now. And it was quite a remarkable journey. As it turns out, our son-in-law had asked us, "Hey, have you ever been to Pinehurst?" And we said, "No, I've seen it on TV, but I've never been here." So we came down here and visited. And when we drove into the village, we came off the circle, off of 2 into the village, we were struck by how nice the village is. And we spent several days staying at the Holly Inn, walking the village and talking to people in the village. And again, just felt like it was home. We went back to Northern Virginia where we were living at the time, talked about it for a while, and 2 weeks later we were here and bought a house where we live now. We have found Pinehurst to be a truly unique and remarkable community, full of people who are friendly, many people who came, as you all know, came from somewhere else. And so they came here because they wanted to be here. And that is, I think, a mark of excellence for the village. And then over the years since I've been here, I've been able to work with several people, including former council person Jane Hogeman, in several things that had to do with land use, and got engaged with the land use, primarily because I think that's one of the primary things that the village government needs to deal with, is to ensure that the land use in the village retains the character and the ambiance of the village, which is what the comprehensive plan says. And so I was lucky enough to be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Board, and I take that responsibility to heart and intend to continue that as the chair of the Board of Adjustment. So that's me.
Story. All right. One, thank you for all you have done for Pinehurst, and I'll see if my colleagues have any question they want to ask of you. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion. I guess we have a few colleagues. We have at least one former colleague of you sitting up here. Yes.
Well, I will contend one point that he made. He said he was lucky enough to be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Board, and I was lucky enough to sit on the interviews with Bill, and it was obvious that he had not only the demeanor but the knowledge, and you can see his approach here as you can in all professional. He's a great addition to the Board of Adjustment, and we are the lucky ones to have you. You're not the lucky one to be on the Board of Adjustment. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
And
John?
I would just observe that there's probably nothing that we will do as a council over the next year or two, maybe a little bit long, that is more important as we talk about things that might happen in Pinehurst South or in Village Place than being sure that we get this right, and that people coming here 2 or 3 or 5 years from now feel the same way that Bill felt when he came here. And it starts with planning and zoning. They're kind of the first line of defense. You could say the planning department, and I would certainly agree with that, but from a regulatory, if you will, standpoint, it really starts with planning and zoning. And so I think is an incredibly important board that we have, and I think by all rights, Bill's not only well-qualified, but brings the right mindset, I think, to deal with the inevitable proposals that are going to come to us. So,
That's great. I share both your comments, Jeremy and John, and hearing that, I gather there'll be a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 26-10, appointing Mr. William Bill Comer as Chair of the Board of Adjustment for the term effective February 10/10/2026 until the end of his chair term on February 29th, 2028.
second.
We got a second before I get asked for it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to fees and charges. Annual event that we all look forward to. That,
Well, Dana gets ready to present, I'll just say that these are updates about keeping our fees like current and defensible. It's not necessarily about just generating revenue. In fact, it can't just be about generating revenue. It needs to be compared to how much it actually costs the village to perform that service.
Yes, thank you, Doug. So our fees and charges policy requires that we review the fees and charges schedule every year. We do that around this time of year because by having it approved by council in February with an effective date of July 1st, it gives departments as well as, it mostly would affect renters and of the venues, gives them plenty of time to implement those new rates effective July 1st. So we do have several changes this year, primarily within the Parks and Recreation area. So we'll first review the items that have changed in the schedule from year to year. It is a very long schedule, so we will not walk through each item. We usually just highlight the changes from year to year. And then if you have questions on any other items within the schedule, I'm happy to answer those.
just so I know how I'm reading this. We have a current fee, then we have an increase or decrease, and then we have the new fee. So this new fee, which would be effective July 1.
Correct, yes. So current fee is what is in the fees and charges schedules that's in effect right now. So basically the FY26 schedule. And then the new fee is what's being proposed for next fiscal year.
I see the note about the amendments to the municipal code. That is something we did last year.
It is, and it was an oversight at the time that change was made. The fees and charges schedule was approved, I think, the meeting before that change was made. It was an oversight in terms of having to then go
I
back
get it.
and amend the
Nope.
fees and charges schedule. Fortunately, we have not written any $50 tickets that
Well, we'll talk about
that would have been, above what the fee schedule stated. I would assume the municipal code may override the fees and charges schedule, but,
No problem. I'm just,
but yeah, so this is just to make it consistent with,
go ahead.
with the new municipal code, parking violation fine.
Dana, I don't want to confuse it, but if we wanted to make the motion that this specific one is effective immediately, would that,
That's a fair point, Doug. I would recommend that as well.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll keep that in mind then. Council, we can do that at the end. So,
Yes,
okay, so
then
now,
the, next for the Fair Barn, the only changes in the Fair Barn fees is to increase the nonprofit rates by $1,000. The nonprofits do get a discount compared to commercial or, resident, non-resident renters. So this is still below those rates. They do still get a discount. The increase is to align it with nonprofit rates for competing venues and to account for increases in operational costs.
Dana, do you want to take questions as we go, or do you want to wait till the end? We can do it either way as far as I'm concerned.
You're welcome to ask them now, that's fine.
go ahead, because I think that's what I'll do.
I'm not opposed to us, I'll take it. The topic of inflation is much in the news these days. But since this is a one-year or an increase over 1 year, these numbers are all dramatically higher than any sense of actual inflation. When we talk about raising the charge by 67%, $1,000, even if that's in line, are we sold out? Do we have so much demand because at the moment we're priced below the market that we feel that we can increase the fee without impacting the amount of number of rentals that we have?
I don't know the exact occupancy or, rates. I can get that information, but I would say all of these changes are recommended by the department heads for their respective areas in consultation with their staff that work with these groups every day. And so, yes, they believe that they will still be competitive and it will not negatively impact the usage of the venues by implementing these.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
So the $1,000 increase for the facility, the Fairbarn facility, that was requested by the department head that's doing it, okay.
Yep.
This is anecdotal, but my experience with a not-for-profit group that tried to rent the Fair Barn was, I took it back what the price was, and they were like, how could it be that cheap? So it is a pretty good deal.
I remember when it was $500 for a citizen. So, yeah.
I understand. And I believe we are, of course, looking at enhancing the Fair Barn. Okay.
Yeah, we received the
That's-
CVB grant
We received the
funds
grant, and we've
to
got some
help
money we're going
support
to
that.
contribute to that. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
The resident, non-resident differential. Okay, I see that continues. Okay.
Yes, so then within the harness track, so in the Parks and Recreation section of the full schedule, if you look at the track changes version, there were a number of changes, particularly related to the harness track, but some other sections as well, where they really kind of restructured the way things are grouped within the fees and charges schedule. And so while we kind of just completely rebuilt those sections to align it with what the department requested, there were very few actual fee rates that changed within the harness track section. Some of them, a lot of these changes are really to accommodate different needs as infield usage has increased significantly from what I understand for athletics and other groups, not just for equestrian activities, as well as with more improved grooms quarters and increased usage of the harness track during the training season. We have the highest number of stalls rented, I believe, that we've ever had, or at least in quite some time. And so they want to try to change the way some of the fee rates are structured to continue to encourage that and maybe kind of meet some of those trainers where they're at in terms of how they want to be able to pay. For example, the two-payment option, giving some more flexibility and getting people to pay in a way that works for them. So there's an addition of a per-hour rate for infield use. The food and beverage and alcohol vendors, this was more just moving it from the Parks and Recreation section to the harness track where those events with food and beverage and alcohol vendors actually occur.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How long has the alcohol fee been at 400? Do you know? It's been a long time.
Let me find that one in here. Come on. It's been at that rate since 2018.
Okay. All right.
There's been some double occupancy requests in the groom's quarter, so this is adding fee rates if there is double occupancy within the room. Adding a damage assessment, and it's basically just whatever the cost of repairing the damage is for the village. That gets passed on to the renter if there is any damage left to the groom's quarters. That was it for the harness track. Any questions on the harness track changes? All right, then within the recreation, some $5 or $10 increases in the open gym memberships, really accounting for increased operating costs. The classes and programs, I believe last year's schedule, we increased the kind of base fee of $10 to $15, but it had a different phase in to time it with when the summer camp starts, which is in June, before the schedule becomes effective. So this is just removing that section where for some things it was still $10 up to a certain date. And then adding more flexibility for the Parks and Recreation Director to determine post-event cleanup fees if the space is not cleaned up as required per the contract. The $100, there have been instances where that is not sufficient. It doesn't happen often, but at least in cases where the $100 would not be sufficient to cover any additional cleanup costs, there's now flexibility for that.
Is that based on an actual cost of us to do the cleanup?
Yeah, so it would be, depending on what it is, it could be done by staff, so quantifying the staff time spent doing that, or if it's, repairs or something that requires an, outside vendor, it would encompass that cost as well.
At the end of the day, it's a somewhat subjective judgment made by the Director of Parks and Rec.
Yes.
Dana? Do we have any concerns statutorily on that point there, considered it's not very clear and specific cost?
I don't believe so, based on what I understand. The important thing from the statutes is that the fee rates are driven by actual costs. And since it would be based on the cost that we could substantiate for that cleanup, I don't think it would be an issue. Doug,
But it could
are
be
you aware
after
of
the
any?
fact, right? I mean, because once you realize what the cleanup it is.
Yeah, right. So I agree with what Dana said. I think this will probably be few and far between. It's like,
Yes.
Someone really trashes the place,
Right.
and it's like, it took us 5 hours to clean up after them. We should
for my
hold them
knowledge,
accountable.
We're not quite to it, but following up on that point, does it cost us anything different to provide the fair barn on a weekday versus a weekend?
I don't believe it would. I think that is driven more by demand.
Because we differentiate the pricing, and you probably will get to that. But inherently, whatever we have to do to open the facility up and make it ready for a group to come in.
Yeah. And that is not a permit, so it's not like
Right.
it doesn't follow the same regulatory requirements. We're actually allowed to, charge a market rate for the fair barn.
I understand, but I'm trying to figure out, what does it cost us to provide the fair barn?
Yeah.
What kind of cleaning do we do in advance and before the event and so forth?
To answer your direct question, it is about the same cost, whether it's a weekend
Okay.
or a weekday.
Yes. I would say it varies more so based on the size or type of event versus the time that it takes place. A wedding that fills the venue versus, a luncheon with 50 people is probably going to be very different in the staffing needs and the preparation involved. Okay, and then these are updates, increases to the fees for the Arboretum and Tufts Park usage. A lot of that has been somewhat consolidated to where it's now kind of like just an all grounds fee, or the grounds and the pavilion. The schedule previously had a breakdown, if it's just for the pavilion, the meadow and the pavilion, and kind of very granular. I think they're making it almost more of sort of packages, if you will, for the park, Tufts Park and Arboretum spaces. And again, these are kind of more driven by the market in the area. And then one final note that's at the bottom here. Throughout the document, and you can see it better in the track changes version, there are some areas where we have updated wording or descriptions to be consistent with changes that are being made. The other item that we added this year is with the phase out of the penny. It will take years most likely until there truly is a shortage to where we cannot make exact change. But since we had the opportunity while we're updating the schedule, we did just add language on how we will handle a cash transaction where exact change cannot be made. Really, it's just rounding up or down to the nearest 5-cent increment.
Just as a sidebar, having been watching a few old episodes of West Wing, there was one recently that I can't remember which year it was.
I can't
99.
believe you admitted to that.
My wife was watching and I was listening. There was a segment dealing with phasing out the penny. I just got a kick out of that. Oh my God, it's all a full cycle here. All right.
All right, so that's all of the changes that were made in the schedule that were requested by the departments. Any other questions?
No. I appreciate this, how you went through it and the explanation and keep going.
I have to thank Sheila Edmonds, the assistant director. She is the one who
Did it-
coordinates with all the department heads and makes all the changes to the documents. So thank you, Sheila.
I do have one question. A little bit of a training for me, and Doug, if we need to take us, elsewhere, that's great. So a little bit of our strategy and our theory behind, how we set our fees. You had mentioned defensible, and I'm assuming that you mean by defensible versus our true cost that we're assuming, right? Because tell me if I'm wrong, we cannot create profit centers with any of these and go to market rate. Or is that what you're meaning by that, or educate me if you would?
For our rentals, we can charge a market rate for those. What I meant defensible is more for our permits. For a building permit, we can charge, $5,000 when it only costs us internally.
Just because we want
$100.
to.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going. So
Just because we want to generate money, yes.
So if we can offset the cost or realize what a cost is behind our permits, that's how we want to set the amount. Is that
Yes,
what I'm
exactly.
Yes, and
Okay.
I think,
That's a general statute. That We
Yes,
can only
and-
cost what we think we can only charge what we actually think it costs to provide.
And then
Yeah, and
defensible becomes if we have to defend that,
Yeah.
whatever our cost is. Okay, thank you for that
Yep.
education.
yeah, I think the underlying principle there is that since a permit is something that is required by law, we should not be price gouging people just because they have to do it. And also, if the price is very high, it encourages them to try to do work without a permit or something like that, for example. And so it's meant to just keep that pricing fair and aligned with the actual costs of providing that. And we did just update while we're on the permitting, the permitting and inspection fees, those were updated, I believe, in last year's schedule. There were some pretty wholesale updates to those based on updating the cost analysis.
Jeremy, anything?
Yes, I'm good, thanks.
Dana, on page 12 of our packet, this comes back to my question about what does it cost us to provide this, but the pricing for weekend rentals based on 14 hours and the pricing for weekday rentals based on 8 hours seem not in sync, and I'm just curious why. And even the gap between them.
Okay, so for you're
Right,
comparing weekend, so the fact that the weekend is $750 more than,
If I was
the
thinking
weekday
as
for a
a,
resident, for
if I was
example.
thinking as a resident of hosting an event there, and I have a choice between doing it on a weekday or a weekend, and I think I might need 14 hours, I'm always going to take the weekend because that's cheaper than $3,000 plus 6 times 150. And I just.
Yes.
And so for the resident and for the commercial, the gap is less than what it would cost if I quote, paid by the hour for the overage. And why do we need to have a different price if our cost of providing are the same? Is there something in the market that suggests that it's intelligent for us to do that?
Can I, John, a question? I'm looking at this, and what I'm seeing is that if you're going to do this on a weekend, it's going to cost you a little more.
Well, no, the 3,000 is only for 8 hours. If I need 14, that's 6 more hours at 150 is 900, it'd be 3,900, not 3,750.
But I think I see it as charging on the day as opposed to the hours.
But
To
there's
me,
a base, there's a base that restricts how many hours I can use it.
Yeah, John, to answer your question, I think our intent here is to be available for like luncheons and seminars and things on weekdays at the Fair Barn, and that is the appropriate price for that. You're right, if you wanted it for 14 hours, this is a little odd. But
Yes.
what we're trying to do is get the people that are coming into the village that only want to have a seminar for the afternoon.
So I'm inferring that a meaningful number of our rentals are for materially less than either 8 or 14 hours.
Yes.
Well, we charge a base of 8 hours.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yes,
Right,
but I-
but my actual need,
Yeah,
it's
it is-
lunch.
yes.
We're gonna show up at 10:30, we're gonna be done by 2.
correct.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, I think the 8-hour weekday timeframe is based on what the renters typically want, the length of time they need based on the events that are typically held on weekdays in terms of where the demand is.
Okay,
So
so it's a
it's
market,
priced based on what people want,
a
you know, the amount of time.
market-driven or demand-driven pricing
Yes,
philosophy.
and I think that is
Thank you.
why, like, the commercial has a 14-hour weekday option. That's probably the only group that really rents it for more than 8 hours on a weekday. You know, there's not a 14-hour option for resident, non-resident, nonprofit.
There's probably, I'm guessing, very few evening weekday rentals as opposed to the weekend rentals, the wedding that goes much later into the evening, the concert and all that.
Yeah, and Dana will be in front of us soon to talk about financials, and we can talk about the
Okay.
Fair Barn. But essentially, weekends are almost always booked. Weekdays are the opportunities we have to increase bookings.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead back to where you were, I guess.
On the changes?
Yeah, I think, did you finish those changes?
Yes,
I think
yeah, we
David-
had completed the list of changes, so if there's just any other questions, I
Well,
can answer
I
on the
remember
schedule.
when I read it at home, there was a red line of some wording changes and so forth. I think
Yes.
that'd be good to see again if
Okay.
all familiarize what we're editing.
The end here.
But most of that was changing who is responsible, it was on cleanups, that the Director of Parks and Rec is responsible.
Few odds and ends.
So, you know, this is a wording change here in terms of the definition of a nonprofit for the use of village rooms. And that was to, I believe, make it more inclusive so that the HOAs and POAs that rent here regularly that are not, may not be IRS registered 501c organizations, that they can get the nonprofit rate.
Thank you.
That's not an update.
What was that one we,
Yeah, I think,
oh,
that
that's,
was,
that's the weekend issue then, okay.
yeah, I think, I forget how it was worded previously, but I think weekend just made it,
Yeah, makes it clear.
yep. I think it said non-weekday before, so.
I think Friday, we count as a weekend. And
Yeah,
so
so I think it said non-weekday previously, so it was changed to weekend to be consistent with down here explaining that the weekend is
Right.
Friday through Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
This was just a wording change, adding only available on site for the tables and chairs.
So we have chairs, and we're
Yes.
charging them per chair.
Yes,
Okay,
if we set them up, yep.
okay, interesting. I forgot that.
So this is what I explained before with the harness track. It all looks like it was changed just because of the way fees were moved around and regrouped it was recommended by the department to, for ease of use for the people that are renting the harness track. And I think it also makes it simpler for our staff that have to administer these fees
I
and
noticed
determine
some
what
of
to
these have been
charge.
in place a good
Yes.
while,
Yes.
so, is that, are we sort of just override any inflationary things, or is there just another reason that we've had something since 213.
Yeah, I mean, this one even from,
change.
since 2001, I think they are looked at every year by the departments. So they are things that either they're maybe not, they don't need to be charged often sometimes, and so there's minimal impact if the fee doesn't keep pace or it's
I
maybe
defer
not
to the
directly.
department heads there. It's just,
It is interesting how long some of these go without needing to be changed. So this was, this is, I believe, yeah, so this is still the harness track, just reorganizing. There were some changes to definitions here.
Yeah.
And one of the items that was a change was it used to be a cleanup deposit that was charged. They would pay it in advance, and when you completed your event, as long as everything was cleaned up satisfactorily, you'd get your deposit back. That creates a lot of administrative effort, and I believe a lot of times they were having to withhold some or all of that deposit, and so they instead just made it a cleanup fee that's included and that's charged with the rental. But yeah, these were just to update the wording of these items. These are changes we went through. They removed bleachers, adding the street closure.
I never thought about the
Or
street
sorry,
closure.
it wasn't adding, it was just, it looks like it was just moved from below. And then here's the post-event cleanup change. Let's see, just trying to find some other wording changes. Yeah, so here's some of the changes where it used to be broken out a little more granularly. I think this was redundant. It's listed somewhere else below in the definition of a participant or resident here. And then this is the addition of the penny phase out kind of policy, if you will, of how we'll treat that if and when it happens. Obviously, anything that's being paid by check or credit card or debit card will still continue to be charged at the exact amount that we need to collect. It's only if it's a cash payment and the person paying cannot give exact change, or we, in our cash boxes, cannot make exact change for that person. So I don't anticipate that this will really be an issue, but it was an opportunity to add it so that if and when it comes up, we know how to handle it, and the community will know what to expect. I believe that's the end. Yep.
Thank you very much. I thought that was thorough.
Thank you.
And comments or questions for Dana?
I have one question. The final document, how can one find it from our website?
Great question. Oh, I am not able to.
Excellent question.
Is this our website here? Okay. So there's a few ways. Probably the simplest is doing business, and then under doing business with the village, fee schedule. And if you click that link, it goes to the fee schedule page, and you will see, we usually keep some previous ones there, so once this one is adopted, the 2026 fee schedule will be added, and we'll drop off the 7/1/24 schedule. Yep.
Is there any particular way to summarize what we just did as far as fees that went up and versus went down, or percentage adjustment, or there's really not a way, there's really not a way to
I
do
would
that?
say, I mean, in terms of the changes, the Parks and Recreation area, given that it has the event venues with the harness track and the fair barn, those are the ones, since it is a lot more market and demand driven, they tend to change more frequently than fees for planning and inspections and some of the other areas where we collect fees. So it's not surprising if you see Parks and Recreation items each year being changed. It may not be the same ones increasing year after year after year. We try to keep things a little more stable. But it's with the portfolio that they manage, and in terms of rentals, it's the most common area to see changes each year.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion if someone would like to make one.
Can I make the quick reminder about the,
Yes,
Okay.
thank
yeah.
you.
I move to approve Resolution 26-11, adopting the fiscal year 2027 fees and charges schedule effective July 1st, 2026, with the exception of the charge for parking tickets, which I would propose to make effective immediately.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion adopted, and I guess you're probably gonna have to make an edit to that, Shannon, but I'll give it back to you. Thank you, Dana. Okay, hold on. The Juniper Creek. Carlin, go right ahead, Carlin.
Good evening. So we'll be talking about the bids for the second phase of the Juniper Creek Boulevard Sidewalk Project. As you recall, back in the fall of '25, just a few months ago, we completed that project. There was overall strong community support, and council expressed the desire to move forward with phase 2 of that. So we did a formal bidding process. We opened bids on February 5th and received 3 bids to construct 1.3 additional miles of 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk. And that would go from the end point of phase 1, which was at Deerwood and Juniper Creek, and it would end at Bedford Circle near the north entrance of number 6. So we wanted to discuss with council that and ask for some additional funds from fund balance to finish out that project. The lowest responsive bidder was Cole Excavating. They bid $783,515. That is the base bid for the concrete sidewalk as well as the alternate bid for the crosswalk markings. And that is our recommendation to go with their bid for the project. So in doing that, we have $256,185 remaining in this year's budget for sidewalk projects. We would need an additional $605,000, which would include a 10% contingency to finish the loop on Juniper Creek. And we're asking if council approves that to also grant Doug as village manager the authorization to execute change orders and add additional quantities at the original unit pricing with the overall amount not to exceed $861,185. And that amount includes the 10% contingency.
Okay, can you take us to the map? Isn't there a map with this? There we go.
I can see the map, or down here, this is where we started in the first phase. This is the intersection of 15501 with Juniper Creek, and on the left side is Forest Drive. So we went all the way up past the clubhouse, which is right here, and went all the way to Deerwood. And then the second phase is from Deerwood, and we're actually stopping at, is it Belmont Circle?
Bedford.
Bedford. The last portion, when we figure out a way to make this a safe crossing, we'll complete from there to getting over 15501.
And what about is that Deerwood Boulevard?
Yeah.
That's not
included with
that's
this?
not included. So it's Deerwood and Golfers Way. That's not included as part of this
Okay, so
bid.
that's not
Right.
included.
It's just finishing out the loop on along Juniper Creek
Okay.
Boulevard.
All right. But it's in the eventual plan, and someday we'll probably get to it, or we're,
Eventually.
eventually. Okay, that's fine for me. I don't have a horse there, just, it's drawn as if it was one project, is what I,
Yeah.
color-wise. You might want to make that a different color, for people may take that as being all completed. One color scheme.
I doubt that they would do that, change it for $256,000, so.
I mean, yeah. If we get it all done for the price, we would, but yeah. Any additional questions?
Yeah, I'm not saying that we didn't talk about, I don't recall us discussing this. So I will take it as gospel that we did. And the only concern I have is a fairly significant change to our capital budgeting. Actually, I had breakfast on an unrelated topic yesterday morning with someone who lives at number 6, who went out of his way to say how happy he was with that, and how all of his neighbors say they're happy with it. He mentioned one little piece of, there's a bridge over a creek somewhere that they said they have some wrinkles with,
We're working on it, yeah.
which I said I would drive by, which I haven't done yet. But did we think that coal would not be available to do this again in the next fiscal year? Therefore, we wanted to accelerate it, even though in some sense it was a significant change, a more significant change to our annual budget than we would normally make.
That's, I mean, you can,
I think that I think our goal is to try to stay ahead of a cost increase and try to keep it at the unit price. So our internal estimate for the remaining project along Juniper Creek would be it was about $770,000. So they came in about $13,000 above that. So what we're seeing with other projects is costs continue to increase.
And is that based on increased costs for raw materials, or just?
Yes, sir.
So that we think, forget long-term, even just with a 1 or 2 year horizon, this is saving us money to accomplish a project that we have had the idea that we wanted to do
yeah,
in the first
and
place.
this has been the highest priority project for sidewalk projects.
Yeah.
And it would have been, planned on being funded anyway, so we're just doing it 6 months earlier.
And given the scope of it, it's not something we can accommodate with our annual allocation to sidewalks. It has to be almost a separate capital item. Okay, thank you.
Doug, remind me of the cost of Phase 1.
How about you ask Carlton that question?
What if we ask Dana?
Or
It was
Dana?
over $1 million.
Yeah, I think it was like 1.2 million.
$1.1 million, $1.2 million, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I believe the final cost came in over 1.1 million, but that was for 2.2 miles. And it also included, we did a change order to install sod. Instead, the original bid price was just for seeding.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions on this? Okay. Well, since we're through discussing it, I gather we can move on to the ordinance itself, right?
Do we actually need a motion on this one?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we do, yeah.
I move to approve the Juniper Creek Boulevard Sidewalk Extension Product Phase 2 contract with Cole Excavating for the total base bid and alternate bid amount of $783,515, and to authorize the village manager to execute change orders and add additional quantities at the original unit pricing with the overall amount not to exceed $861,185.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion adopted. Congratulations. Finish up the project. I should have asked, what's the deliverable date on this? When do we expect them to be finished if we make this award?
The contract would be for 120 days, and we anticipate starting in April.
Oh, wow.
So July, August-ish, depending on when everything's finalized and their availability to start.
April it is. Thank you very much. All right. We have other business.
First,
No,
no.
not yet, not yet.
Hold on.
2 items. This one, since you've approved awarding the bid to Cole Excavating for the project, this is the actual ordinance to amend the budget so that we can execute the contract.
Okay.
So the additional funding, as Carlton had mentioned, is $605,000 that would come from fund balance.
Okay. I'm waiting for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 26-06, amending the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget for the Juniper Creek Boulevard Sidewalk Extension Project, Phase 2 funds in the amount of $605,000.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
We did that.
Real quick, just for the record, our GIS analyst, Justin, and Mike Apke, our public services director, did a great job with this project, kind of mapping it out rather than having to fully engineer the project, which probably saved us around $200,000 and like 18 months of time. So it was a great team effort.
My sense is that this section of the project will be at least marginally easier. They don't have a couple of big dams to negotiate and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a dam, but yes, Mike Apke agrees with you. He says this should be easier than the first
Relatively
phase.
speaking, yeah.
And
All right.
I believe that this bid, if I'm not mistaken, already includes doing sod instead of seeding, so that would not be it would be done consistently with the first phase, and that would not be an additional cost like it was for the first phase.
That's correct.
Do we know how many homes are in number 6?
How many homes?
How many homes?
I think it's 1,185. Lots.
About 12,000, yeah.
1,200.
1,200, okay.
Yes. Right. Okay. Other business. If someone has anything they'd like to raise?
I move to adjourn the regular
Oh,
meeting.
hold on. I got one thing to raise.
I didn't
Just
hear
one
anyone.
Little thing. I noticed this in the paper sometime today. And it was entitled NC5 Overlay Corridor Approved. Aberdeen approved a overlay corridor. And caught me by surprise because I hadn't heard that they were thinking about that. They actually have, the paper has some good pictures on where this is about. And they are, they're going to create a 50-foot setback for buildings and parking. And there is mention to whether or not they're going to run into the legislature's recent downzoning, Senate Bill 382. So they talked about that. I didn't know if anyone has any thoughts, whether or not, of course, if they're doing one, do we need to think about our world of overlay? And so it says other business, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Sure.
Doug, have you heard about this, or you know what's going on?
Yeah, I know they've been talking about it. I have not read the article. My concern all along has been that I think this would be considered a downzoning and in violation of now state law. So I haven't read the article, so I don't know what their thinking is behind that. But I would be curious as how they are
How they
moving forward.
worded it and all, yeah.
Well, I also think, realistically, there's sections of that road in Aberdeen which have commercial on one or both sides.
Yeah.
Which I don't think north of Blake Boulevard we really have, even leaving aside railroad rights-of-way and what have you. I'm just not sure it's applicable for us.
I would agree with that as well. There are a few portions along Highway 5 in South Pinehurst that could use some redevelopment efforts. I don't think an overlay helps that process.
Okay. All right, well, I'll read one short paragraph. The overlay will create a 50-foot setback for buildings and parking, create traffic flow requirements around entry to and exit from the highway, set tree canopy preservation and stormwater device visibility standards, among other requirements. So, Jeremy, does this ring a bell with you at all, or?
Well, it does. I know we've been a little bit timid to approach this, rightfully so, and as well as the county has been timid to do this. However, the county did put a statement about highway corridor overlays in the land use plan. However, it's very benign. I do think we pull and take a look at the ordinance that Aberdeen approved, and let's look at the verbiage on it. I haven't seen it, so I think that's our step.
Doug, why would it be considered downzoning?
Because you're adding more restrictions to the property.
Even if you're not changing density per se, you are adding restrictions, gotcha?
I will add that I think the area that this would only be applicable to in Pinehurst is already a form-based code zoning district.
Okay.
Well, there could be other areas that I think that we would at least want to have up for discussion. Possibly well, depending on what your thoughts on 211 would be, but I agree on Highway
Yeah,
5.
yeah, I was thinking mostly Highway 5. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't agree. I mean, I see your point on Highway 5, but I think there may be other areas. So I'll pull the ordinance at least.
yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to look at what Aberdeen has done. And the county one is already in place, so that makes it not a down zoning.
Okay, well, whatever you find the ordinance, ship it around or put it in the weekly, whatever. And that's all I had to raise on that, on other business. If there's no other business, we can take a break here.
I again move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion,
Second.
second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Let's take a 10-minute break. How's that?